There is nothing wrong with your internet. Do not attempt to adjust your settings. We are controlling the podcast. We control the squealing and the screams. We can make your heart flutter, your eyes blur from tears, or sharpen your mind to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit back. We are in control of what you hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your settings. You are about to experience the awe and mystery known as the female mind. You are now entering the Fangirl Zone. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fangirl Zone. I am Sean Fangirl S and today we are discussing Handmaid's Tale. So that being said, I have my awesome co-host, Miss Jennifer, joining me again. Hello.
Hello everyone.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're at episode 7. And this is a crazy episode.
We get to see, and it's called The Other Side, we get to see Luke's side.
Yes.
Not only is he alive, we get to see him alive.
Yes, and everything that happened to him, to know how he made it to the point that we've seen him in episode 6. So let's give the little tiny synopsis that we always get. So, Other Side. Remembering her family's treacherous escape attempt, a shocking revelation from life before, Gilead provides a new perspective on Offred's life. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, okay, so this is obviously not in the book. The only perspective we get is Offred's in the book. So, like the Serena Joy episode, this is new content, and it's exciting new content because we learn new and not wonderful things, but new things nonetheless about Gilead and how far it's fallen, and what has exactly happened, and what the resistance is, and just how hard it is to get out of Gilead, even as a man.
Yes. Because apparently they want all you guys trapped too, because they want to use you one way or another.
Oh yeah, you're either going to be a guardian / angel, or someone's driver, or someone's... Yeah, or on the wall.
And
so
yeah, this was really interesting because, like I've said a couple of times, my husband and I are watching this together so that I can get his perspective at the end of it. We're going to do one. And he actually pointed something out, which I should probably save, but whatever. He pointed something out that they are so adamant of collecting these people, whether it is man or woman, because you're going against everything.
Yep.
And he's, when he's looking at it too, because I'm like, okay, what do you think? Because this is strictly the man's point of view in this one.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't know how they would do that. And, as we kind of talked it through, he's like, all right, I can see that you're doing what you have to survive, but at the same time, like, I don't know how they would give in. And, we've talked about it. And you and I have talked about it,
Yeah.
If they're taking your neighbor and you see them just flat out, like, take the wife, take the kids, and shoot the neighbor in the head.
Yep.
Yeah, you may want to stand up, but if you have a wife and kids, you're probably like, shit.
Yeah, if you want to stay alive in this world, you don't stand up. And it's kind of what happened in Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
When people started seeing their Jewish friends and neighbors and shop owners within their towns and villages being rounded up and losing everything, they did not speak up, because to speak against the regime was to suffer the same fate. And a lot of people ended up going along with stuff that they absolutely didn't believe in just in order to survive. So you have a lot of people who are kind of, ignorant of history saying, oh, well, all of the people in Germany at that time, were flawed in their thinking and bad. No, some of them just didn't want to die.
Some of them were
and that's
really
what
scared.
It comes down to. And they're really scared, and a lot of them, helped harbor their friends and neighbors and try to get them out of the country and things of that nature. And I do want to note that when there were refugees coming from Europe, Jewish refugees during that time, and they got turned away and sent back, a lot of them ended up dying in the concentration camps that we didn't know about until the war really ended.
Right.
So
that's why seeing this and seeing that there were still people willing to fight, even though this was early on. So this is supposed to be, what was it? We said 3 years back.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the beginning where, yes, Luke, June, and Hannah are in the car, and it's like, okay, we see that, and then it kind of goes back and forth. So we see Luke being shot, which we seen that originally. Because June sees him, like, laying there, crumpled next to the car.
Yeah, and like her, we all assumed that he died.
But what we don't get is what happens next, which apparently these people at Gilead, well, why are they trying to save him? Because they put him in an ambulance, and you have, you know, the paramedics working on him. They're like, oh, his blood pressure is coming back to normal. But, I mean, they didn't try to get the bullet out.
Oh, no. Yeah, they're just trying to, you know, do what they can until they get him to wherever they're taking him.
And I'm automatically thinking, again, why are they trying to save him? And I'm like, I bet it's to make an example.
Yes. They're big about making examples. And also, I have the feeling that Gilead they had so many people run that they need the numbers just to sustain themselves as a society in order to fill all of those service positions.
But if they're already running and he's trying to save his family, I don't see him being cooperative. But I really think it's more of the example to be made.
Yeah, it could be. And it very well could be that they declare him an unman or something of the sort, and there may be some kind of penalty like we saw Ofglin before she suffer, where it's like castration of some kind, where he becomes a eunuch. Therefore, he's not a threat to any of the superior men in Gilead, but he can still drive a car or something to that effect.
Now, obviously, you guys have watched it by now, so you know that this is just us speculating.
Yes.
But it's just really a big question just kind of hanging there. But that may be why they didn't try to take the bullet out, too.
Yeah. Well, even then, that's the early days, and you see complete towns. The town that he finally makes it to is just a shell of its former self.
Okay, wait. All right, let's rewind a second. Let's talk about what happens really quick before we get there. Because they're driving, and he's kind of in and out. He's slowly coming around, and you hear the one paramedic, you know, tell the driver, "Hey, be careful, it's icy."
Yeah, and we know it's icy from the first episode because when they're being chased, they're sliding all over the road.
Which is how they ended up off the road.
Yeah.
And, well, apparently the ambulance driver doesn't care, and, well, they end up going off a bridge, actually.
That was a beautifully shot wreck scene.
That was amazing.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Now, Luke is okay. Well, I say okay in parentheses, or in quotes, I should say, because, I mean, he was shot, so he's not really okay, but he was strapped in. So he's not moving anywhere. The paramedic is bounced all around, so you know he's probably not making it. And then the driver was ejected from the bus. I say bus.
Should have been wearing a seatbelt. Should have been wearing a seatbelt.
So as Luke struggles to get out of the, what was it? A gurney. I'm like, God, what's the word?
Yes.
He falls down, which is, you know, you have that, like, brief moment of, like, laughing, because it's like, oh, ha, ha, and then you're like, oh, shit, right, he was shot. Sorry.
Yeah, okay, this is not cool, we shouldn't laugh. Okay.
So he grabs up a bunch of supplies, which is smart.
Yes.
And grabs the guy's coat and then the gun. Manages to get out of the ambulance, sees the driver, and he's asking him, like, which way to, I don't remember, the road. And then he kicks the guy a couple times, and the guy dies. And I'm like,
yeah,
I understand you're upset, but he was dying anyway. So
yeah.
And plus, I would have taken that guy's gun, too.
Yeah, and you know, I probably would have kicked him, too, because, you know, you guys shot me, and now you're going to take me for what?
Right.
What?
And then
you wreck me. I mean, come on.
And then as he makes his way, he does make it to an area, which, this is what you were saying, evidence of the takeover, because so many of the houses were like, or they weren't even all houses, like the buildings were like tagged. You know, you've seen Gender Trader, yeah, the windows are broken out. It looked like there was fire possibly in some of them.
Definitely riots of some kind happened, or maybe there was, you know, a war fought where the people were, you know, beaten into submission who tried to maybe stand up together as a town. We really don't know, and I want to know more. So season 2, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, nod, nod.
I know. It's like you want like a kind of a prequel stuff, but you want to go forward too. It's very disturbing when you're like, oh, which way do I want to go more?
Yeah, it's kind of like Lost. Do I want to know more about their past and how they're connected?
Right.
Or do I want to know more about what's going to happen to them on the island? But did he get to, after he was in the ambulance, did he get to keep the stuffed bunny in the book of baby pictures that he managed to collect up?
I think it was in the backpack or in the bag.
Okay, yeah, because that was heartbreaking to me that all they really were able to have was that book of baby pictures, anything that they could kind of carry on them, because they couldn't look like they were running. And then he sees the tiny boot.
Oh my God,
he's trying to find them, and then they get him. Oh my gosh, I was just like, oh. And so he's probably thinking they're dead.
Right. And then he passes out, and he's thinking about them. And where did he make it into? Was it a bar? I couldn't quite tell, because he tries to drink something and then he spits it out because obviously it had gone bad.
It had gone bad. I don't know if it was a bar or if it was like a soda place or like
an ice cream shop or something.
Yeah, like an ice cream shop with like a little bar where you could sit at, because I saw tables overturned, but it was really such a wreck you couldn't tell exactly what it had been, but they had serve some kind of drink or food there.
Right. There was something for him to try.
Yeah.
He passes out, and he's woken up by a woman kicking him.
Yeah.
Not the way you want to wake up, obviously, after being shot. But they think he is one of the guardians because of the jacket.
Yep.
And next thing you know, right, next thing you know, you have a gun in your face, and he's like, I'm not one of them. I took it. They shot me. I took this jacket because I was cold.
You know what he's got to be thinking? I cannot be shot twice in the same day.
Right.
Please, I've had enough.
But we find out that these people were undesirables, which was interesting because as they take him, they're like, okay, listen, let me look at the wound, and oh, you have supplies, we can fix you. Put him on the bus.
It's two women who find him.
Yes. And we find out the one girl that was helping him was, well, they call her an army brat. Now, I think army brat, and I think, you know, you grew up with your family in the army, but it seemed that she was part of the army.
Yeah, I mean, she could have also grown up in the army, and then, like a lot of children who do grow up in the military, join themselves.
Okay.
So.
And then you have a woman who we later find out, well, shortly find out, was at a Red Center, and that's when he finally starts getting information.
Yep.
You have a man who was a gay man.
Yep.
And then a nun. And I can't remember if they explained the driver at all.
I don't think they did. Okay. But he doesn't want to go with them at first, and they're like, no, come on, we'll help you.
Yeah, because you're going to die of your wound.
Yeah, so it was two army brats, a gay guy, and a nun, is what my notes say. And then he learns that training there, that, you know,
about the Red Center.
Yeah, but the training centers for gathering fertile women, and then let's see,
because they weren't calling them obviously Red Centers at the time, but what we find out is the girl who we never actually learn her name because she never speaks.
Right. Yeah.
She was one of the women that were taken. They were at a school, and I wish I remembered all of their names. It was the gay man who was explaining they were at a school, and there was about, what did he say, 30 or 50 women. And we find out they were all the fertile women, and those guards weren't going to let them out, no matter what. And she was the only one that survived it, which was crazy. And Luke's like, what the hell are you talking about? Because that hadn't hit yet where they were.
Exactly. Yeah, he just knew that they were taking women and children, and they should have left early like Moira did, is basically.
Right, because in the flashbacks it kept saying we should have left earlier, and he's like, we were waiting for visas, which at that point...
Visas didn't mean anything.
Right, which of course we don't know that, because we haven't seen that from their point of view, like anybody being turned away at the borders or anything.
Right.
But, like, Luke keeps remembering forward and back, so it's like his... I think forward and back, and it's still back and back.
I think that visas don't mean anything if you're trying to leave. Like Gilead wouldn't let you leave even if you had a visa. More than, you know, other countries taking you in.
Well, it was just really frightening because they get to a point where they're like, listen, fine, we'll take you here. We're fixing you up. Because she gets the bullet out, she staples it. Ow.
Oh, yeah.
Into an IV. And she's like, all right, we'll get here. If you really want to go back, you can take this boat. We're going to go up to Canada because it's safer.
Yeah, and they have to go on a boat because every land passage, they're like, it's blocked. We'll get caught. And they do end up giving him antibiotics, too, so that there's not an infection or anything like that. But once they make it to the boat, I was just...
Well, wait. Because it's worse before that, so we'll just dial back a tiny bit. Because Zoe is the army brat.
Yeah.
Who's like, listen, I have to show you something before you make this final decision. You know, he says goodbye to everybody, and they're wishing him luck. Like, okay, I hope you find your wife and child.
Yeah, because he wasn't going to go on the boat with them.
Right. And even the nun is like, okay, you know, I hope everything works out, and I pray to God that you find... Because... Catholic nuns are not being looked at very favorably in Gilead.
No one from any other religion except the official new state Jacobean religion, the Sons of Jacob, is acceptable.
Which is pretty messed up. It's like, oh my God, you're going to kill a nun?
Mm-hmm.
Or they were going, well, she was older, so they wouldn't, like, try to breed her, but still, it's like, that's...
Well, she could be an aunt or, you know, Martha, but...
Yeah, I think she'd be like, yeah, screw this. So Zoe's like, listen, we have to go here. Takes him to a church, and she's talking the whole time. And they go inside, and he's like, oh my God, what's it smell? And she's like,
look.
Yes, all these people hanging from the rafters.
Yes, every town has one to let people know what happens when they fight back.
Yes. And explaining, you know, the people here tried to hide the women and children, the fertile women and children, and when they fought back, this is what they do. And are you ready for that?
Mm-hmm.
Because going back, you're going to probably be in the rafters somewhere.
Yeah, if you don't get out and you're trying to fight, you'll eventually end up on a wall or hanging from the rafters somewhere, as an example. Which was probably where he was headed to anyway. It was to be hung up as an example, quite honestly.
Which is really scary. And then that's a hard choice. Do you go back and hope to find your wife and child, which you don't have any clue where they're taking them?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, but it's a pretty big country, and Gilead is everywhere.
Yeah, and we don't know exactly what parts were taken over, but definitely Boston was taken over. Chicago is resisting, we know, but yeah, woo, go Chicago. But so Luke makes this very tough decision that he's going to get on the boat, and the boat guy is like, hey, this is one too many people. I didn't agree this many people. You're going to have to pay. And so he ends up giving him his medical supplies. He's like, I'm sorry, bud, that's not going to be enough. He has to give away his wedding band.
It's so messed up.
And I'm like, oh.
And it's something that you see in all of these kind of, I'm going to say survival kind of movies, TV, where there's always somebody like, hey, you know, I'm just trying to make a buck. It's like, yeah, but you're being a shit.
Yeah, the opportunist, the heartless opportunist.
And he gave him, like, was it morphine and Percocet? So you figure, I mean, that's probably going pretty high if you're selling it on the black market. But
and that's not enough to get on the boat? I mean, I was like, really? There's a whole bag full of this shit here. I mean, really, you want a small piece of gold? It might not even be real, for crying out loud. And for all you know, but...
That was so just heart-wrenching right there. And then the fact that... He's like, okay, fine, but we have to hurry up because the guards are everywhere and they're starting to watch the water. Which, on the Gilead side, that's smart because you know, well, they're getting out somehow. What else?
Yep. Yeah, where else could they be?
They start shooting, and they use tracer rounds so we can see what's happening.
Yep.
And they end up taking out all but, was it Luke and then the girl who couldn't speak?
Who doesn't speak, yep. They're the only two that make it.
Which at that point I'd be like, you better give me that money back and
I get my bag and ring back.
Right.
Like I'd be like, yeah.
But I mean, the girl, we're just gonna call her the girl.
Yeah.
Which she was screaming because she does speak, she just has been traumatized is the whole thing. So she starts screaming and trying to reach for Zoe and the other ones. And you know, Luke has to grab her and basically like almost lay on top of her to hold her from getting up into the gunfire. And he's like...
Right, because she's jumping up trying to help the others.
Who've already been shot.
Yeah.
And he's like, you know, no, we're saving you. We're saving you. They've already been...
They're gone. They're gone. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like, again, it's like we as the audience are the girl screaming.
Yes.
Because it's like, oh my God, how could they do that? They made it so far.
Yep.
And the fact that they're just killing the women indiscriminately because they're trying to get away,
yep.
It's like, how would your leaders think about
it? Those who cannot assimilate into the society, I guess. So they're just to be strung up as examples, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, that was pretty messed up. And I felt so horrible.
Yeah, and I'm like, after all of that, and he wasn't even sure he wanted to go on the boat, he and the one girl who doesn't speak anymore are the only two that make it. And I'm just like, wow.
And then I had this horrible thought. Had he not delayed them to make Zoe show him, like, the church, would they have all made it?
They probably would have made it. So he must be feeling tremendously guilty. And Luke is that kind of guy. He's a pretty upstanding guy. Did he have an affair and cheated on his wife? Yeah, but I think that marriage was kind of already done by the time he met June.
It was rough. It was rough.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good guy. And the fact that he was holding the one woman back to save her, to keep her safe, and willing to, okay, you're going to have to leave the country if you want to have a chance of finding June and your daughter.
Because there's people that can help you.
There's people that can help you. You're going to have to leave in order to get them out. And I can kind of relate to that because my family is from East Germany, and they were on the wrong side of the wall, clearly. And my great grandfather rode a bicycle because it wasn't a physical wall the entire way around like you see in Berlin. They just had checkpoints, and some of it was, fencing and barbed wire and things like that. So he went on a bicycle and was shot at by machine guns and made it into West Germany. And he had to go first because he was the man, he's the one who could make money and what have you. And then he sent for my grandmother and her sisters one by one, and then finally his wife, until they were all in West Germany.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of have a little bit of family history that is very similar to what's going on here. But yeah, he could not, my own great grandfather could not help his family until he himself was out, just the way Luke had to get out himself. Had he stayed, there's no way he could have gotten them into West Germany.
Which it's got to be like just horrifying knowing that, okay, I'm going here because I have to do this so I can try to get them, but knowing that you have to leave them.
Yep. And I believe my granny was smuggled in a car.
Oh, wow.
Like they had these, like, they would hollow out these spots in cars where it's just big enough to for a human to crawl up in fetal position and get smuggled out, because at checkpoints they're going to, check your car and everything. And she said she remembers just kind of, not breathing and hoping that they didn't lift this one board that would have revealed her hiding place, and she probably would have been killed right there on the spot.
Wow.
It was her feeling. So yeah, as a small child, she got smuggled across.
It kind of takes us to what happens with June and Luke and Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're driving and you hear them talking to each other, and June's looking out the window and all you see is these armed guards everywhere. And Luke's like, we're just going for breakfast. It's not illegal yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which that's foreshadowing, no end. So they end up going to what looked like a little junkyard.
Yeah.
And after I explain this, I have a question for you with that. They meet up with a man who's Mr. Whitford, which they had never met. And he's like, oh, maybe we should have had a code word or something. But then he tells June, oh, you look so much like your mom. I would know you anywhere. Mm-hmm. And she gave me the snip a few years back when they made it illegal, which...
Yep.
When you're thinking about that, now this is the early days of Gilead. Now, when he says it was a few years back when they made it illegal, it's like, wait a second.
So how long has this been going into place? Did they, as the United States, make certain things illegal?
Because they see the declining, birth rates. So yeah, I'm wondering, it's like any man can't have this, but he's like, although, I mean, he was an older man. He's just like, was it an act of defiance? Or was he like, I don't even want to maybe breed?
Yeah, but I mean, men usually have a longer fertility life shelf than women because Hugh Hefner, look at him.
Right, that's true.
But yeah, so what this says to me, and this wasn't in the book, but what this says to me is that America as a country already had enough people in the mindset of we have to do something to stop these dropping fertility rates. And that includes making vasectomies and birth control forms and abortions and things like that, making those things illegal before the Sons of Jacob ever blew up all three branches of the government and took over.
Now, this is where they have to give up all the stuff because they can't look like they're running and they have backpacks. So it's like, okay, you have no clothes now, you have nothing.
Yep. You're leaving everything you know, and you pack what little thing you think you can take. And they've given Hannah Benadryl to kind of keep her, quiet. Because for a little one like that, I mean, they're hard to keep quiet. If they get upset, they're going to whine, they're going to cry, and it's hard to reason with a toddler.
Right.
Just for anyone who's ever tried it, especially if you're at the grocery store, and they're laying in the floor pitching a fit, the only thing you can do is leave your buggy, pick them up as they flail, and walk out.
Right. And I get that. And so they get rid of everything, and he's like, okay, Whitford's like, all right, listen, I'm going to drive the car. You guys get in the trunk. And Luke's like, what are you talking about? Now,
it's like, it's safe. Right. It's not safe.
So all three of them get in the trunk. So it's funny because I always look at a trunk when I'm buying a car. It's like, oh, it's plenty roomy.
Yeah, plenty of room. Yeah,
yeah. But this is what's scary because then he throws the backpacks in a rusted out car, and this is what I want to ask you. Because he said he's done this before. Are those rusted out cars all the cars of the people he has helped before? Like, how long has this been going on? Because there was a whole lot of backpacks in that one car.
Yeah, like all those cars, like maybe it wasn't a junkyard or maybe it was a smaller junkyard, so you wouldn't notice if there's like an extra car or three there. But yeah, I didn't think of it that way because there were some newer looking cars there that weren't completely rusted out. So how many people has he helped over the years? A note about June's mother.
Okay.
In June's mother, in the book, and this isn't giving away anything or spoiling anything for our listeners who have not read the book, but in the book, June's mother is an activist for women's rights. And she is actually shown in a film that the girls see in the Red Center, standing up for female rights, and they're like, these undesirable people, blah, 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 blah. And June's like, oh my God, it's my mother. And then she kind of like goes back and talks about her childhood and everything and about how she was a wanted child. Like her mother never married. She was that, much of a feminist that she's like, I will never be any man's property. I'll never get married. And she made fun of June for getting married. And June would always kind of roll her eyes like, yeah, mom, girl power, that kind of thing, and was complacent. But I think it's an interesting stance for June, knowing she had such a strong mother who fought for women's rights and did not believe in the patriarchy and believed in, women being equals and, having rights and everything. What must she be thinking now as a handmaid?
Oh, right.
Especially
like
seeing
contrast there.
Yeah, and seeing, wow, I came from that and now I'm here. Maybe I should have not rolled my eyes at my mom, and maybe I should have gone to some of those protests. Don't know if it would have made any difference, but...
Well, that could have put in a whole different spin, where if they had her on film, she could have been made an example of in front of everyone, so...
Yeah, and they didn't...
speculate that too much.
Yeah, and June doesn't say, hey, that's my mom or anything. She just kind of, recognizes her and doesn't say anything. But maybe if they knew June's mother, if they'd gone and kind of checked, they wouldn't have even let her go into the Red Center because they may think she is an undesirable who would rise up.
That's true. Well, we'll see what happens with that. But so the three of them decide to get in the trunk. They're like, okay, we can do this. But, okay, I'm just saying, that is a really big trunk for 2 adults and a toddler.
Yeah.
And they had room.
Yeah, yeah. And they got the baby book and, the couple of things that they wanted. But they didn't grab the Benadryl.
Right, because Hannah starts to stir and Luke's like, don't worry, it'll be fine.
She'll sleep.
And then the scary part, there's a stop and the trunk opens.
Mm-hmm.
The look on June's face is probably the same look I had at that moment.
Yes.
Because the guy's with a flashlight and he's looking and then he kind of, he stops for a second. So if he had a partner there, which I'm assuming he did,
mm-hmm.
and because he, yells out all clear, after he bends down and then Whitford comes back and he's like, oh, I took his sister to prom. Trust me, he owes me. And he calls it, this moment, first, you're very lucky you didn't, yell out to make any noise.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea how many other people are out there.
Yep.
Second, just the horror of that happening and not knowing, could Whitford actually have been setting you up? There's so many things that would have had to go through their mind.
How do we know this guy is trustworthy that's helping us cross?
Right. It just had to have, everything happened in that moment. And then he closes it. He's like, we're almost there. And he closes the trunk. So, you'd be able to breathe again, but so many what ifs in that second.
Yeah, and you start rethinking your decisions that you've made in your life at that very second.
And then seeing that guy and knowing that he is working for Gilead, but basically letting people through.
Yeah, is he doing it for the money? Is he doing it because, he really is a part of the resistance?
Yes, that's exactly
what I was thinking.
Is he basically doing what he has to do to survive, but helping in any way he can?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people would find themselves in that position.
I can see that. And if you can possibly be in a position like that where you're at, a checkpoint and possibly have other people who are in the same mindset as you there, you might be able to help more people.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it was hopeful. I was hopeful at that moment that, okay, there are people who aren't buying into this shit.
Yeah, there are people within the Guardians, the Sons of Jacobs, who are a part of the resistance, and they're helping people get out. And there's also a female road, which is kind of like an underground railroad going on in Gilead. Mm-hmm. And there are several different ways that they're smuggling people out. But yeah, just the terror, and that's when I thought back to my granny, and had they found her, that
yeah. I can see that because you've seen that on their face. It's like, oh my gosh, what? But Whitford does get them out. He gets them to a secluded cabin in the woods, which is close to Canada, but not at Canada, because they need Canadian passports, and that's when we find out that the visas mean nothing.
Exactly.
He's like, oh no, I got the visas, and Whitford's like, no, no. And it's weird because Hannah and June are like, let's go find your room. Okay, they go upstairs.
She's trying to, keep her from being scared. Oh, it's like we're on vacation, honey. Right. Let's go pick a room, because they don't want her freaked out.
And I don't think June wants her to know everything that Whitford's going to tell Luke right now either.
Yeah, exactly. She does not want Hannah listening to that conversation, because Whitford says, you ever shoot a gun? And then hands him, this pistol. He's like, you pull the hammer back, you load it, you spin it, you pull the hammer back, you squeeze the trigger, bingo bango, you've shot somebody.
He went through it so fast, and Luke's like, yeah, I got it. I'm like, can you do that one more time?
Are you sure? I feel like I've watched enough Westworld that I could probably do it, but Luke, I don't know. I think he might have some difficulties.
I've never shot a revolver. We have a Glock and we have another one. I'm blanking on the name, but so a revolver, I think I'd be kind of lost.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, did they outlaw automatic weapons for the sell to everyday citizens? So are, pistols and shotguns, things like that, are the only thing that you are really available?
That might be. But then again, if you're kind of up in the woods and it's a hunting one, you're not really going to have automatic weapons. So maybe as to not draw attention.
Yeah, very true.
But, they're there for a while, and they show them, having pancakes and kind of laughing and joking, and they go out to the lake and they're skipping rocks.
Why did they leave the house?
I know, but it might not exactly have been a bad thing because there's all of a sudden a dog and a hunter, and my heart dropped, and I'm like,
I was like,
oh God.
no.
Right, because you have no idea. I mean, this guy seems real nice, and he's talking, and then they're like, okay, let's get back inside. So they get in the house, and they're like, shit. What do we do? Do we leave? Do we wait? And next thing you know, the hunter's at the door knocking, and he's like, Luke was just showing June how to work the gun, and man, June's the one who grabbed it and had it right on the guy.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, listen, I'm a friend, and it's like,
we don't know that.
Right.
We don't know that.
And he tells them, they're looking for you. I heard on the scanner.
Mm.
So you have to get out. They're like, should we wait for Whitford? He's like, Whitford's dead. It's like, oh, shit.
And that's when my mouth dropped open. I was just like, Whitford is dead. Holy shit.
Right, so can we trust him? We don't know. But he's like, I got somebody across the border. I called him. If you can get down there, they will help you. And he's like, just take this road till it ends, and then it's like a mile up. Stay off the main roads. And he's giving them all this information, and I'm like, but do we still trust him?
Yeah, exactly. Do we do what this guy says? And where did they get the car?
Didn't he say you can take mine?
Maybe.
Oh, no. Because
I don't know
Whitford
if it's
took his truck.
Or...
No, because Whitford drove their car there and then took his own truck.
Okay, so maybe that's what I'm thinking, yeah.
That's why I'm thinking that there's been a car that he had to take back, like whenever he's trading somebody.
Right.
To get them out.
Right.
Now, at that point, you're kind of stuck. You have to trust them and hope for the best.
Because to wait could be your death sentence.
Right, because if they're searching everywhere, they're going to search the house.
Of course.
So, I mean, even if it's secluded, they'll find your ass, basically.
Basically, yeah.
And then, of course, that's what everything happened from episode 1. And then we know what happened. So then it kind of flashes forward 3 years.
Yep.
And
3 years Luke has basically been searching for them.
Yes, and trying to figure out any information he can give to the authorities to help them.
Yeah, and it seems like he's fairly active at the refugee center with helping or at least going there on a regular basis for information.
Yes, and he's living in Little America, which is based in Toronto. And he's with Mute Woman. So at this point, I'm like, okay, wait, they're living together because he says, oh, they got the power back on in the apartment. And she goes to run back. He's like, you can't go back there. You have to be outside. So I'm thinking, okay, they're together, but they're not, together. Because she still seems so traumatized.
Or are they together?
I'm thinking she's still so traumatized. If she's not speaking still, that...
Yeah, 3 years later?
Yeah, that...
what did they do to her in the Red Center to traumatize her that much?
Well, I'm thinking getting all that information, and she was tagged, and honestly, this was the first time I really noticed... What was that?
Do they not have tracking devices in the tags?
No,
because that would be kind of smart.
No, they don't, which is something a lot of people have said. But that was the first time I actually noticed the tag was this episode.
Yes.
Because I don't remember ever actually seeing it unless it was just kind of passing. But
yeah, it's always kind of covered by their little bonnets that they wear or, by their hair. And yeah, you never really see it.
Yeah, so this is the one when it really stands out. And I was like, okay, now we see what, that all the women who are fertile, which still, I don't exactly understand how they're doing that, but how they're figuring it out.
And would there be a way to remove that after you've, gone out of the country? Because I would cut that off me immediately. Right. I'd be like, if I had to rip my own ear off, I'd be like, all right, I don't need it that bad.
Right. There's got to be something. But it's weird because then we see Luke get a call on a cell phone, which, what we're seeing in Gilead, there's no cell phones.
No.
So... He gets a call, and he's like, okay, I'll be down. And he goes to an admin office, and you see just all the missing person flyers. And this was heartbreaking because it reminded me so much of, 9/11.
9/11, exactly. Like 9/11, yep.
And that just hurt. And just seeing that, and you're thinking, oh, my God. So, even though she wrote this book way back, this was an added part, so they could have done it. But then again, any kind of area that's been war torn, you're going to see posters like this.
Yeah. missing, separated. Well, like when they had the tsunami over.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like people were missing and children went missing, and the earthquakes in Haiti where people just went missing and they were never found. And it was heartbreaking to see so many flyers and pictures up there.
So many people that have no idea what happened to their loved ones. And it's just like...
And this is when we learned that there's an official U.S. support center or office in Canada that is actively trying to help people get out and reunite with loved ones and what have you. So.
And this is when we get Luke receiving information from that letter from June.
Yes, from the Mexican ambassador's aide, where she very hastily had to write something down. We didn't see what she wrote down, but now we do. And it's, I love you so much, save Hannah.
And then he just, like, cries, which, it was so funny because I look at my husband, I'm like, huh? How would you feel? And he's like, well, I'm like, oh my God, I need more than that. Like, I wanted more in that second from him, but I'm like, it is something you have to process, because seriously, I was crying again, and it was my second watch on it. Because seeing that emotion run across his face, like, he was never sure. And he's still not 100%.
Sure if she was alive.
Because it was 3 weeks old.
Yes, it's 3 weeks old, so a lot can happen in 3 weeks. So I asked my husband, because we've always kind of had the talk that if you have to choose between saving me or the children, I always want you to save the children. But yet, as a husband, you want to save us all.
Right.
It's like picking which arm to cut off, you know. And as a parent, I would be, I'm a grown woman. I can figure this out, but Hannah is an innocent little girl. She's helpless. Save her.
Right.
It would be how I would be as a mother, but he's got to be thinking to himself, okay, save Hannah. I don't even know where you are, so how am I supposed to save Hannah?
That's true, because they have no idea, like, if Hannah's anywhere near her, or how separated everything is.
Yeah.
But it was so weird because he had these maps and everything, and he's like, if you're trying to hide a large group of women, it's got to be in like a school or something. So he's working.
And he was dead on,
working on the information he had from the girl who doesn't speak, and just everything he's been trying to gather. So it's just.
So he's definitely helping the resistance from his side and doing what he can. And the parting thoughts that I had after watching this episode is you do not have to be a woman to stand up for women's rights.
Right. And actually I had kind of a long talk about this. It's like, okay, so he's not just trying to save his family. He's trying to save all the women who are put in this this situation. And I'm like, so essentially, yes, he's not just a rebel. So I'm like, he's a feminist. Right?
Yep.
And then...
And men can be feminists. Yeah. It does not make you less of a man to stand up for equal rights as a woman. It does not make you less equal because women are equal. It's not a pie. It doesn't mean less pie for you. It just means that we get the same size of, slice of pie as you do. It doesn't mean less pie for you.
Which is funny because there's times when my husband and I will talk and I'm like, okay, so you're a feminist because yes, you do believe that a lot of this shit is stupid. That like, why are they, if they're going to say, just in general, in reality, not just in the show, of course, women can't have this, and this in regards to their own body, but nobody's saying anything about men. He's like, that's stupid, because why is it one and not the other? I'm like, okay, so that is what feminism is, talking about equality and being able to...
Exactly.
And he's like, I thought feminism was, and he's talking about like these crazy extremists where, like superior. I'm like, no, that is,
I'm like that want to get rid of men and take over.
That's not feminism. That's just a crazy extreme. Just like in every single thing, there's always going to be an extreme. Yes.
Yep.
So when you see this and it's heartbreaking, and you know that, like you said, who does he choose?
Yep. I gotta say, if he were to sit and think about it, of course his emotions are going to tell him to, try to save his wife. But when you sit and think about it, the children are the future. And it took it was an absolute miracle that Hannah was born to begin with, because there are so few births and so few viable births in this society that it would make sense to save Hannah. And that is the natural, I'm going to protect you, mama bear, parent thing to do. But at the same time, he's got to be thinking, but how in the hell am I going to raise my daughter without June? Because that's what my husband said. He's like, well, what, yeah, okay, I'll save the kids, but how in the hell am I going to do this by myself? So, yeah, it's a real selfish choice. Yeah. It's a real selfish choice.
Oh, well, guys, of course we want to know what you think, how you felt about this episode, because it was such a difficult choice for them. Yeah. And then just, knowing that at the moment, at the beginning, his wife was alive, and then knowing at the end, and then everything Luke's gone through. So we want to know what you guys think. So shoot us an email at fangirlzonepodcast@gmail.com. And, of course, you can find everything always at fangirlzone.com, because we have our contact page. It's just easier to go there. You can tweet with us, and, shoot us a message on Facebook, an email, whatever. But then Jennifer has more information, too, for where you can find her.
I'm with the Hollow 9 Network. You can find me on a variety of podcasts over at hollow9.com. And we spell it a little weird because we're cool that way. It's the word hollow, the number 9, I-N-E, all one word, .com. And if you go to our page, you can see our many podcasts. You can also see a few Fangirl Zone things there too as well. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm on Twitter as at Jennifer 9, spelled the same way as we do the 9 in Hollow 9, with the number 9, I-N-E. And I'm also available on email at jennifer@hollow9.com.
All right, everybody. So we really hope you are enjoying this. We are coming to the end of Hollow 9, of Hulu show, A Handmaid's Tale. There's way too many H's in that moment. I can't talk. Because Hollow 9 is not over. Hollow 9 is rising up, reborn.
We just got a new website, so check that out.
Jennifer just redid it, so you might notice in some later episodes we kind of had things a little out of order, but that's how it is. But yes, go check them out and check us out, and we hope everybody's enjoying it. So for this episode of Handmaid's Tale, I'm Sean Fangirl S.
And I'm Jennifer.
And until next time.